Under the breath of night, when the sky spills its quiet shimmer across the vast silence, there flows a river made not of water, but of stars. It winds through the heavens like a silver thread, endless and trembling, carrying whispers of those who once loved too fiercely for the gods to forgive. This river, the celestial stream, divides the heavens, separating what once was whole, yet each glittering current bears the echo of a story older than time, a story of longing so deep that even the constellations pause to listen. It is said that if you gaze upward on the seventh night of the seventh moon, you might see two stars burning brighter than the rest. They stand on opposite sides of that starry river, gazing across the light that keeps them apart. Their names are whispered in legend: the cowherd and the weaver girl. To some, they are mere figures in an ancient tale, but to those who have ever loved and lost, they are something far greater, the very essence of yearning that ties heaven to earth. Before they were bound by the laws of the sky, before rivers of starlight became walls between them, there was only stillness and duty. The heavens moved with quiet precision, each star following its course, each deity obeying the rhythm of divine command. Yet even in eternity, there is a pause where fate hesitates, a fragile moment where desire finds its voice. In that stillness, the weaver girl looked down from her loom of clouds and saw the world below, green, breathing, alive. And somewhere upon it, the cowherd looked up, his eyes tracing the faint shimmer of the heavens, unaware that destiny was already aligning their souls. The air that night was heavy with warmth, the kind that softens edges and makes the world sigh. The sky was wide and endless, yet within it stirred a secret pulse. Every breeze that swept across the heavenly river carried the scent of rain and starlight. And from the distance, the faint rhythm of the weaver's loom could be heard, steady, serene, weaving celestial silk for the robes of gods. Her fingers danced like light across the threads of creation, each movement drawing constellations into form. Yet beneath her calm, a hidden ache began to grow. For she could weave the pattern of the universe, but she could not weave a soul to share her silence. In the world below, the cowherd tended his cattle in the misty dawn. His world was humble, a soft horizon of fields kissed by dew, a life measured by the breath of his herd and the rise of the sun. Yet within him lived quiet wonder, a yearning he could not name. He would watch the sky when night fell, tracing the flowing light above, and wondering if someone watched him in return. Sometimes he would think he felt it, a presence like a sigh, a warmth that brushed against his chest. It was the call of the weaver girl, though neither yet knew the other's name. Love, when it begins, is not a thunderclap. It is a whisper. It seeps through the smallest cracks of fate, unnoticed by gods or mortals. It hides in glances, in dreams, in the spaces between breaths. It was through such a whisper that the weaver girl and the cowherd first felt the pull of something forbidden, a longing that did not belong to the heavens or the earth, but to the tender, reckless pulse of the soul itself. The heavens are vast, but they do not forgive easily. Each star burns under the eyes of laws older than time. The gods watch, and they remember. Love among the divine is often seen as weakness, a distraction from duty, a flame that risks consuming the order of the cosmos. And yet, how could even the gods resist the beauty of longing? The weaver girl who wove the patterns of starlight began to weave something new, dreams. Within her cloth shimmered visions of the earth, soft fields, gentle rivers, the fleeting blush of dawn, and among them a figure who looked up at the heavens with eyes full of wonder. Each night, her loom sang with a deeper ache. The threads trembled, forming images of warmth, laughter, and human closeness, things unknown to the gods. The celestial maidens whispered among themselves, warning her to focus on her duty, to weave as she was meant to. But how can one weave perfection forever and not hunger for imperfection, for the touch of the fleeting? Down below, the cowherd dreamed of a woman dressed in light. She appeared to him by the riverbank, her form woven from the mist, her eyes bright as the first star of evening. She said nothing, only smiled, and each morning he awoke with her image burning like an ember in his heart. He began to speak softly to the sky, not as one prays to the gods, but as one confides in a lover unseen. His words rose like threads of breath, and in the heavens the weaver girl listened. Thus the first bond was formed, not through touch or word, but through the echo of longing. Two souls divided by the vastness of heaven and earth, reaching across the silence. Their yearning wove itself into the very fabric of the stars, a thread invisible to divine eyes, but strong enough to alter destiny. The river of heaven flowed quietly between them, reflecting the light of countless stars. The weaver girl would pause at its edge, her fingers grazing the air as though she could feel him through the glow. She wondered what it might be like to walk upon the earth, to feel grass beneath her feet, to touch something mortal and real. The thought frightened her and thrilled her, for in that forbidden longing lay something the heavens could never give her, the promise of impermanence, the beauty of a moment that does not last. In the stillness of the cosmos, the winds began to stir. The magpies whispered of an awakening, a shift in the order of things. Even the stars seemed to hum with anticipation, trembling in their orbits as though awaiting a story about to unfold. The heavens had long known silence and symmetry, but soon they would know love, and love would change everything. The cowherd, unaware of the threads weaving around his fate, lifted his gaze to the Milky Way one night and whispered to it, "If you are truly a river, carry my voice to her." The words vanished into the light, soft and uncertain, but something heard him. The stars shimmered faintly as though answering, and far above, the weaver girl's heart fluttered in rhythm with a voice she could not yet understand.
It was then that fate leaned forward, curious. The laws that bound heaven to its order trembled, sensing the first breath of rebellion. The weaver girl began to weave faster, her fingers trembling as she spun threads of silver and moonlight. Within them appeared a bridge, delicate, shimmering, spanning the celestial river. She did not know why she wove it, only that her heart demanded it. It was her secret, her dream made visible. And down below, the cowherd awoke to find the stars brighter than ever before. The river of light seemed to pulse, to beckon him, as though calling his name. He felt something inside him shift, a promise, a destiny he could not yet see. So begins the tale of the cowherd and the weaver girl, a story not merely of love, but of defiance, of yearning so powerful that even the gods must bear witness. It is a story carved into the night sky, told by every flicker of starlight that bridges the gulf between two souls who refuse to forget one another. When the wind sighs across the fields, when the stars seem to shimmer with human warmth, remember, it is their love you are feeling, their eternal reaching, their sorrow made beautiful by distance. For though the heavens divided them, their hearts found a way to meet again, even if only through the thin veil of light that separates dream from reality. And so the river continues to flow, silent and bright, holding within its depths the echo of that first forbidden heartbeat, a reminder that even in the most sacred order of the cosmos, there will always be something wild, something tender, something destined to cross the line between heaven and earth, for love will always find a way to weave itself into eternity.
Beneath the silver hush of dawn, the cowherd walked among his cattle, their soft breaths rising like clouds in the cool morning air. The world around him was modest, rolling hills, the scent of wild grass, the gentle murmur of a stream, but to him it was a kingdom. He moved slowly, as if afraid to disturb the quiet, his hands calloused but tender as he guided his herd. His face held the calm of one who speaks often to silence, his eyes reflecting the kind of kindness that is not learned but born. There was no crown upon his head, no divine light upon his shoulders, only the warmth of a heart that listened to the earth and found it enough. And yet there was a hollow ache within him that no sunrise could fill. Sometimes, as the wind brushed his cheek, he felt it whisper a name he did not know. It stirred something fragile inside him, a yearning that came not from loneliness, but from recognition. The stars above seemed to lean closer when he looked at them, as if they already knew his secret. He lived simply, but his mind was rich with dreams. At night, he would lie upon the grass, eyes tracing the flow of the Milky Way, imagining it as a bridge of light. If only someone walked there, he would think. Perhaps she would look down and see me. It was a foolish thought, the kind that fades with sleep, yet it lingered long after dawn. His life was woven with patience, days of tending, nights of quiet awe, and in that rhythm his soul remained open, waiting for something it could not name. Far above, Beyond the shimmer of mortal air, the Weaver Girl sat before her loom. Her palace was woven from light itself, its walls translucent, its floor soft as mist. Around her, the threads of the cosmos glowed and shifted, forming rivers, constellations, and clouds. She was beauty incarnate, but not the kind that blinds. Hers was a beauty that breathed. Every movement she made seemed to carry music, her fingers pale and luminous, tracing paths of creation across the fabric of heaven. Yet within her eyes, brighter than any star she wove, lived something restless. For eternity she had been told that her task was sacred, to weave the robes of the gods, to keep the heavens adorned. Her mother, the Queen of Heaven, watched with stern pride as the loom sang endlessly under her daughter's hands. But the Weaver Girl's heart grew weary of perfection. Each thread she drew felt colder, each pattern emptier. The sky was flawless, yes, but devoid of warmth. She longed to create not for duty, but for feeling, to weave something alive. Her rebellion was not loud. It lived in the smallest gestures, in the pause of her hand, in the way her eyes lingered too long on the mortal realm below. Sometimes she would stop weaving and watch the earth, listening to the faint hum of human laughter carried by the wind. The gods never noticed, but the magpies did. They perched along the edges of her palace, their black eyes bright with understanding. There came a day when her hand slipped. The thread she was spinning, meant for a celestial robe, fell from her fingers and fluttered toward the mortal world. It drifted like a petal through layers of light and air, falling into the grass at the cowherd's feet. When he picked it up, it shimmered faintly, warm against his skin, as if it had a heartbeat. He looked upward, startled, and in that instant, the Weaver Girl felt something stir through her, a tremor in the air, a whisper that reached her across the distance. It was as if two unseen mirrors had turned toward each other, catching the same light. For the first time, her heart raced, not in fear, but in wonder. "Who is it," she whispered, "that feels me from below?" No one answered. Only the stars blinked in silence, and the magpies shifted their wings as though they knew what was coming. From that moment, their lives became quietly entwined. The cowherd began to sense her presence in the wind. When he bent to drink from the stream, he would see her reflection shimmer across the water, faint but real. He would reach out, and the image would ripple away, leaving only the echo of her eyes, soft, distant, full of light. Each time, his heart tightened, not in pain, but in awakening. The Weaver Girl, in turn, began to weave differently. Her threads shimmered with warmth, forming patterns that no divine eye could decipher. Within them bloomed shapes of rivers, grass, and human hands. She wove laughter into silk, longing into clouds. Her fellow maidens whispered that her work had changed, that her light had softened, her colors deepened. She only smiled, for she knew why. She was no longer weaving for heaven. She was weaving for him. There were nights when she rested her head upon her loom and closed her eyes.
In her dreams, she walked upon the earth. She felt grass beneath her feet, water running through her fingers, and then always she saw him, the cowherd, standing by the river, his gaze lifting to her with a gentleness that undid her. He never spoke, but his silence was full of words she longed to hear.
Sometimes she woke with tears upon her cheeks. The Queen of Heaven noticed the change, how her weaving slowed and her eyes drifted away. "Your duty is sacred," the Queen warned. "The heavens rely on your devotion. Beware of distraction." The Weaver Girl bowed, but inside, her heart whispered otherwise. Was it truly wrong to desire warmth in a world of cold perfection? To crave touch in a realm of light and no flesh? Below, the cowherd too began to change. He spoke less, smiled more softly, his thoughts often drifting beyond the fields. He lingered by the stream long after sunset, his reflection shimmering under the starlight. The other herdsmen teased him gently, saying he was lost in dreams, bewitched by the night. He only laughed, but when alone, his laughter faded. For in truth, he was bewitched, not by the night, but by a presence within it. The sensuality between them was not of touch, but of awareness. A glance through starlight, a breath shared across the river of heaven. A yearning that deepened through absence rather than closeness. The cowherd would close his eyes and imagine the warmth of her light against his skin. The Weaver Girl, high above, would pause in her weaving and trace invisible patterns in the air, following the outline of a face she had never touched. Each lived within the other's silence. Each carried a fragment of the other's soul. And though the gods had not yet seen what was unfolding, the stars began to pulse differently, as if the universe were breathing with them. The Weaver Girl's sisters whispered of her distraction. "She lingers too long at her window," they said. "Her hands tremble when she weaves." But the Weaver Girl no longer feared their words. Somewhere below, a humble heart was calling her name in silence, and she could not help but answer. Her rebellion was not against her mother nor the heavens. It was against loneliness itself. And so the stage was set, the divine and the mortal, two souls drawn together not by choice, but by the gravity of longing. She, bound by duty, yet aching for warmth. He, bound by earth, yet yearning for the stars. They did not yet know that their love would shake the heavens, or that the river of light between them would one day become both their bridge and their sorrow. For now there was only the hush before the storm, the soft, trembling breath of love's first awakening, fragile as starlight and just as eternal.
It began with a whisper, carried on the wind, her voice, delicate as light, calling him through the veil of stars. The cowherd stood beneath the night sky, breath held, the sound threading through him like silk. He could not see her yet, but her presence trembled in the air, as though the heavens themselves had bent low enough for him to touch. When she finally descended, the world seemed to pause. The starlight bent around her form, each step a ripple through existence. She stood before him, a being of radiance wrapped in pale blue mist, eyes gleaming with wonder and fear. He could not speak at first. His heart thundered too loudly, drowning every word. But she smiled, soft, uncertain, the kind of smile that turns longing into flame. "Are you real?" he whispered, afraid that any movement might dissolve her into air. "As real as the breath between us," she answered, her voice trembling. In that single moment, the distance between heaven and earth collapsed, and love, wild and forbidden, impossible, took its first breath. For a time, the heavens did not notice. Days turned into nights, nights into stolen dawns. She would weave clouds to veil her descent, and he would wait by the river, hands trembling in anticipation. When she arrived, the air shimmered with warmth. They spoke little. Words were clumsy beside what they felt. Their connection existed in the quiet gestures, the way her fingers grazed his cheek as though memorizing the texture of skin, the way his breath hitched when her light brushed against him. The Weaver girl learned what it meant to be touched, not as a goddess, but as a woman. The cowherd learned what it meant to hold something he could never keep. Each time she rested her head upon his shoulder, he feared it would be the last. Each time he whispered her name, it dissolved into the air like prayer. Yet neither could stop. Love had found them, and love did not care for celestial law. Their worlds collided in the small hours of night. She would bring him threads of starlight, weaving them into his cloak, while he taught her the taste of rain. She laughed for the first time, an unguarded human sound, and the stars above flickered, unsure whether to shine or weep. The cowherd watched her with reverence, tracing the faint glow along her skin. "Your hands," he said, "they carry the sky." She smiled faintly, pressing his hand to her heart. "And yours," she whispered, "carry the world."
But paradise never lasts where rules are written in eternity. The Queen of Heaven began to sense the change in her daughter's weaving. The patterns once flawless now pulsed with warmth, with color too alive to be divine. The Queen's eyes darkened as she traced the threads of rebellion. "Who has touched your hand, child?" she demanded. The Weaver girl bowed her head in silence, her pulse racing beneath the weight of guilt and desire. When she raised her eyes, tears shimmered there, not of shame, but of defiance. "I have seen love," she said softly, "and I cannot unsee it." The Queen's fury shook the heavens. Storms gathered across the stars, and lightning carved warnings across the sky. But the Weaver girl did not retreat. She descended once more to the mortal world, seeking the cowherd before the heavens could seal her fate. He met her at the river, his face pale with dread, his hands trembling as he reached for her. "They know," she whispered. "The sky is breaking." He pulled her close, feeling her heartbeat flutter like a bird against his chest. "Then let it break," he said. The air thickened with their fear and their need. The world around them pulsed with the rhythm of something ancient. Love made against the will of gods.
She pressed her forehead to his, her light flickering, her breath uneven. "I cannot stay," she confessed. "They will take me back." His hands tightened around hers. "Then let me follow." She smiled, bittersweet and trembling. "You cannot walk where I was born." He kissed her then, gently at first, then with desperate reverence. It was not the kiss of possession, but of prayer, the kind that speaks what words cannot. The sky above blazed with fire, clouds curling like smoke around them, but they did not part. Every breath, every touch became defiance. She traced his jawline, memorizing him in fragments, the warmth of his skin, the curve of his lips, the human scent of grass and air. "If I must lose everything, let it be for this," she whispered. The god's punishment came swift. A wind rose that no mortal could withstand, tearing through the fields, scattering the stars. The heavens opened, and from them poured a river of light so vast it split the world in two. The celestial river, born from divine wrath. It roared between them, shimmering and endless, its current pulling her upward. "Now," he cried, reaching for her. She stretched her hands toward him, fingers trembling inches apart, their touch broken by the torrent. "Remember me," she pleaded. "Even if you forget my face, remember this. Love once crossed the sky." Her voice faded into the storm as she vanished beyond the river, leaving only the echo of light upon his hands. The cowherd fell to his knees, the earth trembling beneath him, the heavens now distant and cold.
But love does not die in silence. Night after night, he would stand at the edge of the river, calling to her through the wind, and across the endless current she would answer, her voice faint as the rustle of feathers. The magpies, moved by their sorrow, began to gather, thousands of them, wings beating against the light. One night, when the cowherd's heart broke beneath the weight of absence, the magpies rose as one and formed a bridge of living wings across the celestial river. For the first time since their separation, he crossed, and there, upon the other side, the weaver girl waited. They did not speak. They only held each other, trembling, their tears mingling with starlight. Their reunion was brief, a heartbeat stretched across eternity. But in that single embrace, they rewrote the heavens. Even the queen, watching from afar, felt something soften within her. She could not undo the law, but she could bend it. Once a year, she decreed, on the 7th night of the 7th moon, the bridge shall rise, they may meet, and the sky shall remember love. So it was written. The cowherd and the weaver girl became the pulse of longing itself, two stars burning on opposite sides of the river, forever reaching, forever denied. The heavens may have bound them, but even the gods could not erase the echo of that night, the warmth of their breath, the trembling of their hands, the sacred ache of a love that defied eternity. And when the magpies return each year, when their wings darken the sky and the river shimmers with light, the heavens fall silent once more.
For every god, every mortal, every star must pause to witness the truth the lovers carved into existence, that no law, no distance, no divinity can silence the heart that dares to love.
The night of their reunion arrived wrapped in stillness. Even the stars seemed to hold their breath as the magpies gathered, their dark wings stretching across the celestial river, forming a trembling bridge of life. The air shimmered with quiet devotion, and the Weaver girl stood upon its edge, her heart pounding like a drum beneath her fragile calm. She had waited through endless nights of silence, each one colder than the last, each thread she wove heavy with longing. Now, at last, the path to him lay open, delicate as a dream, perilous as desire itself. The cowherd looked up from the earth, his eyes tracing the light spilling across the heavens. He had walked through countless seasons of solitude, whispering her name to the wind, feeling her only in the rhythm of his pulse. But tonight, the air was different. It trembled, alive with her presence. His heart ached with disbelief and hunger. He stepped forward, each movement slow, reverent, as if afraid that one false breath would shatter the miracle before him. When their eyes met across the star bridge, time fractured. The universe seemed to exhale. Neither spoke. There were no words vast enough to carry what had been denied them. She descended the last span, her bare feet gliding over the glowing feathers, her light flickering with emotion. When she reached him, the air between them hummed, a fragile boundary breaking after an eternity of restraint. He reached for her hand. The touch was almost unbearable in its simplicity, warm, trembling, real. Her skin glowed faintly beneath his fingers, the pulse of starlight beating in rhythm with his own. She drew in a breath, sharp and soft, her body trembling as though rediscovering what it meant to feel. "I dreamed this," he whispered, his voice rough, the words catching in his throat. "So did I," she answered, her eyes glistening with tears. Then she stepped closer, her forehead resting against his, her breath mingling with his own. The scent of rain and light surrounded them. His hands rose to her face, tracing the delicate curve of her jaw, the softness of her lips that quivered under his touch. For a heartbeat, neither moved. The world had narrowed to the space between their breaths. The gentle heat of skin meeting skin, the tremor of two souls finding their rhythm again. When their lips met, the heavens flickered. The stars brightened, as if unable to contain the brilliance of that single act. It was a kiss born of centuries, gentle at first, then aching, desperate, infinite. She tasted of clouds and tears, of sweetness edged with sorrow. His touch was reverent, his fingers threading through her hair as though memorizing every strand, afraid that she might dissolve into the night once more. Her light spilled over him, wrapping his mortal body in warmth until the lines between them blurred. Heaven and earth, divine and human, all dissolved into one trembling moment of wholeness.
They broke apart only to breathe, foreheads still pressed together, their gasps mingling with the hum of the bridge beneath them. "If this is sin," she whispered, her voice fragile. Then let me never be forgiven. He smiled faintly, brushing away a tear that slipped down her cheek. If love is sin, he murmured, then let the heavens burn. Their bodies drew closer, guided not by thought, but by the inevitability of longing. She leaned into him, her form half light, half flesh, and he held her as if cradling the world. His hands trembled as they traced the line of her back, feeling the warmth of her through the gauze of starlight that clothed her. Every heartbeat seemed to echo through the bridge itself. She shivered at his touch, her breath catching, her eyes fluttering closed. The air thickened with heat and devotion, with the pulse of something sacred and forbidden. The magpies turned their heads away as though in reverence. Even the river below grew still, its light dimming to allow the lovers their moment. They moved slowly, with awe rather than haste, every touch a prayer. His hands rough from labor met her divine softness. Her fingers trembling with light traced the shape of his scars. In their union, heaven knew the pulse of the human heart, and earth tasted the grace of eternity. When she whispered his name, it sounded like the wind moving through water, soft, eternal, fragile. He kissed the sound from her lips, each breath between them burning brighter until even the stars seemed to bow. Her tears fell against his skin, shimmering like liquid silver, and he caught them with trembling fingers. "Do not weep," he murmured. "You are here." She smiled through her tears. "Only for a night." Her words broke something inside him. He held her tighter, as if his arms could anchor her to the mortal world. She rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat beneath his skin. "Your heart," she said quietly, "it sounds like time itself." "Then let it stop, if it means I can keep you." For a moment, it seemed they might indeed defy the heavens. The stars above them spun in spirals of light, and the celestial river stilled beneath the bridge. The air trembled with their unity, their breaths, their heat, their trembling devotion, forming a rhythm that seemed to guide the cosmos itself. Every sense heightened, the taste of her breath, the heat of his skin, the soft sound of her laughter breaking into a sob. Time folded in on itself, turning eternity into a single blinding instant of truth. Yet, even as they clung to each other, the first tremor of dawn began to stir. The magpies shifted uneasily. The bridge quivered beneath their feet. The spell of night was breaking. The Weaver girl's light flickered faintly, her form beginning to shimmer at the edges. "No," he whispered, gripping her hands. She shook her head, tears shining like glass in her lashes. "The sun rises. If I stay, the river will vanish, and the heavens will fall." He kissed her again, once, deeply, desperately, as though trying to pour his entire soul into that final touch. She responded in kind, her hands pressed against his face, her body trembling with both surrender and sorrow. Their tears mingled as the light grew around them, dissolving the edges of the world. The magpies began to scatter, their wings unraveling the bridge. "I will find you," he said, his voice breaking, "even if it takes 1,000 lifetimes." She smiled through her tears, her light flickering. "You already have." Then the bridge dissolved, and she was gone, her form drawn back into the sky. The cowherd fell to his knees upon the earth,
the warmth of her still clinging to his skin, her scent of starlight lingering in the air. He lifted his face to the fading heavens, his heart both full and hollow, as the dawn spilled across the horizon. In that fragile moment between night and morning, the universe seemed to grieve with him. The river shimmered faintly above, its surface rippling like tears. Yet through the ache, a single truth remained. Love had crossed the impossible divide, and in doing so had become eternal. The heavens could separate their bodies, but not the echo of that night. For the touch of her lips, the warmth of her tears, the trembling beat of her heart against his chest would live forever in the starlight. And so the bridge of magpies would rise again, year after year, built upon the memory of their surrender. For even the gods must bow to the one law older than all others, the law of love, which bends the heavens and makes eternity tremble.
When the Weaver Girl was torn from her lover's arms, the sky itself seemed to cry out. Her light scattered into 1,000 trembling sparks, and the celestial river roared back into its course, wide and merciless. The magpies' wings folded as they retreated, leaving the heavens to restore their cold, perfect order. The Jade Emperor's decree had been fulfilled. The mortal and the divine would never again defy the boundary that separated them. Yet, the universe did not feel at peace. It throbbed with loss, as though something sacred had been wounded beyond repair. The Weaver Girl stood once more before her loom in the heavenly palace. The threads stretched before her glowed like liquid silver, but her fingers, once graceful and sure, trembled with sorrow. Each thread she touched shimmered faintly, then dimmed, as if unwilling to reflect a world emptied of love. Around her, the other maidens worked in silence, their eyes lowered, afraid to speak of what had happened. The Queen Mother of the West, her face stern, but her gaze burdened with unspoken pity, watched from afar. The heavens required perfection, not passion. But even she could see the faint shimmer of tears caught in the Weaver Girl's lashes, falling soundlessly upon the celestial cloth, staining eternity with longing. Below, the cowherd wandered the earth in quiet despair. Days turned to weeks, weeks to seasons, yet he could not bring himself to live as before. The fields grew wild, the oxen grazed untended. Every night he lifted his eyes to the sky, searching for the faint flicker of her presence among the stars. He whispered her name into the wind, hoping it might carry his plea upward, past the clouds, past the indifference of heaven. Yet each night the river of light mocked him, a glowing divide that stretched endlessly between them. The gods watched him, this mortal who dared to love beyond his place. Some saw foolishness, others courage. Even the Jade Emperor, unmoved and distant, felt the weight of the mortal's grief ripple through the stars. It was not defiance that lingered in the cowherd's heart now, but devotion, pure, unwavering, and patient as time itself.
He did not curse the heavens, he only waited. And so the years passed.
In heaven, the weaver girl's sorrow became a rhythm, the soft clink of her loom, the whisper of thread through her fingers, the echo of a name she could never speak aloud. In the mortal realm, the cowherd's silence became its mirror, the creak of his empty house, the sigh of the wind through the fields, the pulse of memory that refused to fade. Love, once burning, had transformed into something quieter but no less powerful: endurance. The Queen Mother, who had known eternity's loneliness, began to pity them both. One night she walked alone to the edge of the celestial river. The stars reflected upon the water like countless eyes, each bearing witness to the lover's pain. "Such is the folly of love," she murmured, though her voice trembled. "Yet such beauty it leaves behind." She closed her eyes and whispered a plea, one that trembled like wind against glass. The heavens listened. It was said that the magpies heard her prayer first. They had watched the lovers from their hidden nests year after year, remembering the warmth of that night upon their wings. When the 7th night of the 7th moon arrived, the same night the lovers had first met, the magpies took flight again. One by one, they rose from the earth, from forests and mountains and rivers, their wings carrying them into the heavens. The sky darkened under the beating of countless feathers, and when they reached the celestial river, they began to form a bridge once more. The weaver girl looked up from her loom, her heart leaping with a hope she had long buried. Across the glowing expanse, the cowherd saw the same miracle taking shape. He could hardly breathe as the magpie's wings formed a trembling arch of life and light, a path between worlds. With tears in his eyes, he stepped forward, guided by faith rather than sight. And once more he found her waiting. Their meeting was silent, reverent. This time there was no rebellion, only gratitude. She reached out a trembling hand, and he caught it, pressing her fingers to his lips. "You came," he whispered, voice thick with wonder. "I always will," she answered. They did not need words beyond that. For one night each year, they were permitted to remember what love had been and what it still was. But dawn, as always, came too soon.
When the first light of morning began to stain the horizon, the magpies stirred. The bridge quivered beneath their feet, and the weaver girl's eyes filled with tears. "It's time," she said softly. He nodded, though his heart felt like it was unraveling thread by thread. They embraced, not as lovers defying the world, but as souls bound by something greater than the world itself. Their tears fell together, merging in the air, shimmering like two stars colliding before vanishing into the light. As she ascended once more to the heavens, her hand slipped from his. The magpies dispersed, their dark shapes scattering into the dawn. The celestial river resumed its endless course, dividing heaven and earth once again. Yet this time the division was not cruel, it was sacred. For now the myth of the weaver girl and the cowherd lived within the stars themselves.
Each year, when the 7th night of the 7th moon arrives, the heavens part, and the bridge is reborn. Lovers on earth look upward and make their own promises beneath the glowing sky, whispering vows to those they cannot reach. The magpies, faithful to their promise, return to weave the path anew, their wings carrying the weight of devotion that no god could extinguish. The heavens had intervened, yes, but they had also yielded. Their punishment had become its own kind of grace, a rhythm of separation and reunion, loss and return, sorrow and beauty. The lover's pain had softened the divine heart, reminding even the gods that perfection without love is emptiness. And so the myth endures, not as tragedy, but as truth. The cowherd still watches the sky, his heart quiet but steady. The weaver girl still tends her loom, her tears glimmering like dew upon her threads. Between them flows the river of stars, eternal and unbroken, whispering that love is never lost. It merely changes shape. If one listens closely on that 7th night when the world grows still and the heavens shimmer, one can almost hear it, the flutter of wings, the sigh of two souls meeting once more. And though they must part again with dawn, their story lingers in every starlit sky, a promise that even the coldest boundaries cannot silence what was born from tenderness. Because love, once awakened, never dies, it only waits.
They say that every love born beneath the heavens carries an echo of the cowherd and the weaver girl, a quiet pulse of yearning that hums beneath every tender word, every silent touch, every farewell. For theirs is not merely a story of two souls divided by the stars, but of the eternal rhythm that binds longing to existence itself. When the night stretches deep and still, when the river of light flows unhindered across the sky, the old tale stirs again. It is not a myth that ends. It breathes, it flickers, it waits, shimmering within every heart that dares to love across impossible distance. The weaver girl still sits at her celestial loom, fingers tracing threads spun from moonlight and memory. Each filament gleams faintly as she weaves, humming to herself songs too soft for mortal ears. Her loom does not merely clothe the heavens, it binds them together. Every thread is a life, every pattern a yearning heart, every shimmer a promise that love, even when forbidden, leaves beauty in its wake. Sometimes, when the stars tremble faintly, it is said that she pauses, her hands still, her breath caught, as if she hears a voice from far below calling her name. And in that heartbeat, her tears become stars falling silently into the mortal sky. Below, the cowherd endures. Though ages pass and worlds shift, he remains the quiet symbol of mortal devotion, of the kind of love that does not fade when unseen. He tends the memory of her like one tends a fragile flame, protecting it from wind and time. Each evening, when the first stars appear, he whispers words that the wind carries across the fields, up toward the river of light. Sometimes the faintest glimmer flickers in answer, and he smiles. His patience, once pain, has become something sacred, an offering of constancy that even the gods cannot measure. Between them flows the celestial river, vast and radiant. It was once a boundary of punishment, a wound carved into the fabric of heaven to separate what should never have been joined. But over time, it became something else, a mirror. In its endless motion, it reflects the truth of love itself, that closeness and distance are not opposites, but partners in an eternal dance. To love is to cross that river each day in the heart, to reach for what may never fully be held, and still to reach again.
The magpies return each year, faithful beyond measure, their black wings shimmering with starlight. They gather at the edge of the heavens, called not by command, but by compassion. One by one they rise, their wings beating softly, until the air itself hums with the rhythm of devotion. Together they form the bridge of longing, a trembling span that unites two worlds, if only for a single night. And when the lovers step upon it, the sky holds its breath. That bridge, woven from countless hearts that refuse to forget, is the purest symbol of love, fragile, fleeting, and yet indestructible in spirit. We mortals gaze upward on that seventh night of the seventh moon, and though we may not see them clearly, we feel them. Somewhere inside, the story unfolds again, not as legend, but as recognition. For we too have loved what we could not keep. We too have reached for someone just beyond our grasp, felt the ache of distance and a warmth of memory intertwine. Their myth is the map of our own hearts, the courage to yearn, the grace to wait, the beauty of never truly letting go. Perhaps the gods, in their infinite wisdom, left the lovers apart not out of cruelty, but out of mercy. For what love could remain pure if never tested by time? What connection could grow if never stretched by absence? In separation, the cowherd and the weaver girl found eternity, not as endless touch, but as endless remembrance. Their bond became the pattern from which all tenderness is woven, the reminder that even pain can be sacred when born from devotion. And so when we look at the night sky, we are not only witnesses, we are participants. The same threads that pass through her loom run through our hearts. Every sigh, every prayer whispered in solitude, every hope for reunion adds a new shimmer to her tapestry. In this way, we help them meet again, not once a year, but endlessly, through every act of love that defies despair. The story does not belong to them alone. It belongs to us, to the quiet lovers across centuries who keep the bridge alive. The river of stars continues to flow, silent yet speaking in its own way. It tells us that love's strength is not proven in proximity, but in endurance.
that even when two souls cannot touch, their longing shapes the cosmos. And when we ache, when we dream of someone far away, we become the echo of that cosmic ache, the living continuation of their vow. Love, it seems, is not an event, but a movement, rippling outward like starlight over dark water, reaching further than any mortal hand ever could.
At dawn, when the bridge fades and the lovers part once more, the world does not mourn. The magpies return to their nests, the river resumes its gleam, and yet the air feels softer, touched by something unseen. The stars seem to burn a little brighter, as if love itself had brushed past them. Their separation is not loss, but rhythm, like breath drawn in and released, like the tide that withdraws only to return. Through their parting, the universe learns the art of balance. That beauty is born not from permanence, but from persistence. So remember this when your own heart aches. No love is wasted that dares to reach across the impossible. Every heartbeat that longs, every hand that trembles in absence, every tear shed beneath the stars feeds the bridge between heaven and earth. The cowherd and the weaver girl do not merely meet once a year, they meet through you, through the faith that keeps love alive, even in the face of distance. And when you next look upon the sky, see not cold light, but living thread. The stars are not separate, they are stitches in one vast tapestry. The river does not divide, it glows because it holds the reflection of every longing heart. And somewhere beyond what the eye can see, two souls walk hand in hand across that trembling bridge of wings, smiling through their tears. In that vision, melancholy and wonder become one, for love, true love, is not a fleeting union of flesh, but the quiet eternity of hearts that remember. It endures the silence, it outlives the distance, and in its endurance, it makes the heavens beautiful. The story of the cowherd and the weaver girl is not only written in the stars, it is written in us. And as night deepens, the stars flicker softly, like threads upon an infinite loom. The celestial river gleams, the magpies stir, and far above, two lovers meet once more, reminding the universe and us within it that love, once born, never dies. It only learns to shine from afar.